Hey, this is Pastor Ryan. Thanks for joining us for Step One. This week's passage is Psalm chapter 40, verses 1 through 17. Step One is a resource to help aid in your inductive Bible study. It's a journey through the observation step. Before watching the rest of this video, read through the passage and list some observations you think may be important to understanding it. Let's get right into Psalm 40. First, we see the initial recipient, the choir master. It's categorized as a psalm, and David is the author. With 7 first-person pronouns, we see this as David's personal reflection concerning interactions he's had with the Lord, with 6 references to the Lord. After David waited patiently for the Lord inclined to him, heard his cry, and drew him up. We see 2 locations he was rescued from, the pit of destruction and the miry bog. The Lord's 4th action was setting David's feet upon a rock. The result of these actions so far was to make his steps secure. This idea of walking or ground language is emphasized by being repeated 4 times. We see a 5th and final action God does for David. He put a new song in his mouth. There is a progression of actions. The Lord inclined his ear, he heard him, he drew him up, set him somewhere secure, and put a new song in his mouth. This song is defined as a song of praise directed to God. It is here David expands this from a personal story to being generally applied to all humanity, saying many will see, fear, and put their trust in the Lord. There is a progression of reactions. First they see, then fear, then put their trust in the Lord. So we see the Lord has changed David's life. And then David makes a wisdom statement about how to live a blessed life that is generally applied, saying those who are blessed make the Lord their trust. David defines this trusting in the Lord as not turning to the proud, to those who go astray after a lie. The reason to avoid the proud is because they stray after that lie. David turns to the Lord with 5 direct references, saying it is his God who has multiplied 2 things, wondrous deeds and his thoughts toward us. He makes clear no one else can offer such a package, especially the proud compared to the Lord. He says in response that he will proclaim and tell of those wondrous deeds and thoughts. They are more than can be told. So we see David is saying the Lord can be and should be trusted. Next, David says that neither sacrifice nor offering does the Lord truly seek for his delight. Apart from these things, the Lord has granted him an open ear. The Lord hearing his people is not dependent on their sacrifice. He repeats for emphasis in Hebrew parallelism that neither burnt offering nor sin offering is the key requirement for access to a relationship with the Lord. After noting this open relationship, David says he's come, and there is something written about him in the scroll of the book. Exactly what this scroll is referring to might be an interpretation question to check out. David says he delights, contrasting with what God did not delight in earlier, to do the Lord's will. Speaking to the Lord that it is his law, a synonym here for God's will, is within his heart. Describing twice David's access to the Lord is based on an internal motivation instead of an external set of rules or guidelines. So David says his trust relationship is built on internally delighting in God's will, not externally conforming to the sacrificial system. David goes on to describe how he lives this life both internally but also externally. He is told the glad news of deliverance, not just privately, but in the midst of the great congregation. He has not restrained his lips. David continues addressing the Lord directly, speaking relationally. That third, he has not hidden his deliverance, mentioning this for the 2nd time. This time, he says he has made this known within his heart, internally. He mentions a 4th action, speaking now of God's faithfulness and his salvation. And 5th, he has not concealed the Lord's steadfast love or his faithfulness, finishing the series listing God's character that has led to this deliverance. For the 2nd time, he says these proclamations are public, being made known to the great congregation. So David says his delight was public, not hidden. David turns to the Lord's actions as they affect him, saying the Lord will not restrain to give him mercy, steadfast love, and his faithfulness, using 7 more personal pronouns to tell his story of why he would need the Lord to do these things. He points out evils, appearing to be an external threat, have encompassed him, describing both location, being near surrounding him, and their large number. Next, he mentions his iniquities, an internal threat, have caused him to be unable to see, describing his first reaction, going on to describe his iniquities and their large numbers, with the reaction that his heart was failing him. In this extended description, he mentions 3 body parts: his eyes, his head, and his heart. So David describes his relationship with God as the source of his protection. David continues his personal story, asking the Lord to deliver him and to make haste to help, directing the Lord's actions against his enemies that they would be put to shame and disappointed because they were seeking to snatch his life away. He continues asking the Lord to turn them back and be brought to dishonor as they delight in his hurt. Finally, he asks for them to be appalled because of their shame as they say to him, "Aha, aha." We see in this section 6 mentions of his enemies, their actions described 3 times, while their failure is described 5 different ways. So we see that because God was David's protection, he cries out for help against his enemies. David finishes with a contrast to his enemies, asking that everyone who seeks the Lord, having the same relationship with God, would both rejoice and be glad. Speaking here in the second person, asking for the same group, those who seek after the Lord, would internally love his salvation. We see Hebrew parallelism implying those who seek the Lord are also those who love his salvation. They're saying continually, "Great is the Lord," giving sincere praise from their heart to their God. Before leaving, he turns back to himself, describing himself as poor and needy, switching to a third-person reference, saying the Lord takes thought for him, but finishing by directly referencing the Lord, affirming one more time he is his help and his deliverer, with one final plea to not delay to his God. So we see David saying anyone can have this same relationship. Broadly speaking then, in Psalm 40, we find David telling us of his new situation on secure footing because of a God who can be trusted, telling us this trust relationship is not built through external ritual, but because of an internal reality. This relationship is open to the public. We can depend on this relationship as we face evils, both internally and externally, and the Lord will protect us from our enemies. This relationship with God is open to any who seek the Lord, who love his salvation, and would say, "Great is the Lord." And that's step 1 for Psalm 40, verses 1 through 17. We'd encourage you to continue your step 1 journey on your own. What observations do you see in the text? What's an important observation you think we missed in today's video? You're encouraged to use the life group notes to continue your Bible study journey this week. We're looking forward to processing our Bible study journeys together this Sunday at Louisville Evangelical Free Church. We hope to see you then.